myself. I'm Elliot DeLynn. I'm the director of the Holocaust Museum here in Dallas. What I'd like to suggest to you as a way of introduction is that you are right now going to have a very unique experience. Unique in a number of ways. Unique because you're going to have the opportunity to hear from Holocaust survivor, but also very unique because, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Bock, this is the first time you're addressing students about your experiences. At the end of the war, at the liberation of the camps, the Supreme Commander of the Allied forces, Dwight Eisenhower, had a meeting where he called his top generals, General Patton, General Bradley, all of the top officers that were fighting in Europe and in Germany at the time. And they met in a concentration camp by the name of Ohrdruf. General Eisenhower called all of these top generals together for one purpose and one purpose only, to show them what they were fighting against, to show them the inside of a concentration camp. And when he was addressing officers and press, he made the comment that he specifically wanted everyone to be inside that camp, because should anybody in the future ever deny such an event, ever suggest that such an event never happened, he wanted to be able to stand up and say, it's true. I saw it with my own eyes. I was there. I witnessed it. But the American generals and the American soldiers obviously only witnessed the liberation. The Holocaust survivors witnessed the pain and the terror and the years of suffering. Mr. Bock will present his story. As I mentioned again, this is a unique opportunity because the ability for students to hear Holocaust survivors who can stand and say, I was there, I saw it, this is what happened to me, this is my life, is an opportunity that is diminishing over time. We're thankful for Mr. Bock that he's willing to take this opportunity. We're particularly thankful to Mr. Bock's grandson, Lance, who encouraged his grandfather. This is part of Lance's bar mitzvah project. Lance is soon to be bar mitzvahed, and undertook this as part of his project within that framework. So, a unique opportunity. I hope you take full advantage of it. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Lance Bock.
Great. I'm Lance Bock, obviously, and my bar mitzvah is coming up on the 21st. I'm a middle schooler at St. Mark's, and this is my grandfather, Harry Bock, survivor of the Holocaust. And we're going to I'm going to interview him and answer some questions that you have and tell some stories. All right. So, Harry, what is your exact full name?
My full name is Harry Bock, B-O-C-K.
Okay. Harry, where were you born and how long have you lived there?
I was born in East Prussia, Königsberg, but I grew up in Memel, which is on the Baltic Sea. And I went to the German public school for 3 years. And my mother tongue was German. But Memel was a part of Germany that was taken away in the Versailles Treaty and given to Lithuania. So even though the population was 100% German, the language was German, the police was German, the city government was German, the military and the money was Lithuanian.
How long have you been living in the United States?
It's 1947. We got something between Memel and the United States.
And when did you start to feel hostilities in your hometown?
I never felt any hostilities to speak of because I was shielded by my parents. And after 3 years of public school, they took off the border between Memel County, the German part of Lithuania, and Germany. And we start having Nazis in uniforms. The Germans in Memel were not as hostile as the Nazis from the other side. However, the principal called up my mother and told her to take me out of that school because some of the children may hear some anti-Semitic rhetoric at home, and they may bring it to school and hurt my feelings. So I went to a German Jewish school. Here we had girls, and it was not the discipline that I had in that German school. I was there for about 6 months. I think we were getting to have the memo. My family moved to Kovno, Lithuania, which was like from here to Fort Worth. There was no border because Memo still belonged to Lithuania. So that's when I ended up in Lithuania.
Where were you living and who went during the outbreak of the war?
Well, it's not that simple. In Lithuania, I went to a Hebrew school for 6 months, and I was hostile against it because I felt I was a German, and I had no use for Hebrew. I never learned it to this day. And I flunked the year. I got 1 A for behavior. Everything else was an F. So they skipped the grade, and I went to a Lithuanian Jewish school, which the language was Lithuanian. And Lithuanian, I played with the children on the street. I learned it like in a month. And I got fined, and over there you didn't pass it. You didn't pass one class, you passed a year. And I passed a year. But then the Russians came into Lithuania. World War II started. And they closed down that school. They declared it a bourgeoisie private school, a bourgeoisie school. So now I went to a Russian Yiddish school. There the language was Yiddish, which I never spoke, but it's a screwed up German. All I had to do was talk German with an accent, and I was there. I knew the alphabet from Hebrew, but not that good. And we took Russian. I talked Russian to the soldiers. And I learned, in 1 year I learned Yiddish, Russian, and when I was Lithuanian. And I had those 3 languages. I passed that year too. Then the shooting war started, Barbarossa, when Germany invaded Russia. They overran us. That was the end of my education, 6th grade.
So when did you get incarcerated and how?
Oh, about a month after the Germans came in. There was a part of Lithuania, of Kovno, which is the capital of Lithuania, that
Can you hold it a little bit
was
closer?
full of, it was a Jewish area. They had a very famous yeshiva, which is like a university for rabbis for religion, at the world renowned. And the Lithuanian name was Viliampolis. The Jewish name was Slobodka. So after a month when they came in, they told all the Jews to move into that area, and they made all the Christians move out of that area. And then they put a barbed wire fence around it, and that was the ghetto of Kovno. And we started there, 48,000 people. And 3.5 years later, 4 years later, they kept on shooting us. They kept on cutting off streets and taking this part away and just shooting them. From the 48,000, we ended up 5,000. So I'm lucky to be part of the 5,000. And after, when the Russians started coming back, and the Germans started evacuating everybody, there were 3,000 women and 2,000 men. And they took us in the cattle cars into Germany. They separated women and the children part way, separated us, they left the women in Stutthof, and they took us to Dachau.
How did you manage to survive during the war?
Well, I would like to say my number wasn't up, but I spoke fluent German, and I had German discipline. When somebody told me to go run and get a shovel, I ran and got a shovel. You told it to one of those other Jews who were Lithuanian Jews. First, they couldn't understand it. Second of all, they looked up, this jerk is telling me to run to get a shovel. He didn't move so fast. Boom, he got hit. Once you got hit, you were dead. Once you start working crooked, anybody saw you hit you. So, and I also was lucky that we were building a airplane factory, allegedly atomic bomb proof. On that project there were 5,000 people, 2,000 Jews, 2,000 free laborers that they took from Poland, from Russia, from Italy. They were not under barbed wire, but they had a camp where they lived, and 1,000 Germans. And that thing was going 24 hours a day. And they put me in a place to control this. They had buildings where they mixed the concrete that consisted of 3 levels. The top level had cement that got blown in with pressure hoses. The next level down was gravel that they brought with small trains. And on the bottom, they mixed it all together in a big gondola. Then it got lifted up into the next building where it all went to Mixmaster. They put me in charge of the cement. Cement has a character that they had a chute on the bottom. When they opened up, the cement came out, but they'll make a pipe that will not collapse. So somebody had to stand on top with a poker, long poker, maybe 20 feet long, and poke it and make the cement collapse. I got that job. And I had that job, and that saved my life, really, because I had a roof over me, and it was warm. Cement kept you warm. And that's where I spent a year.
Do you have any stories of concentration camps?
Well, I have one. I got lots of stories. A lifetime stories. In Memo, there was a Dr. Mattis, a Jewish doctor, who had a Christian wife, and they had twins, beautiful children with big, wide, blonde curls. They looked like little angels. And she used to push them down the street. She used to push them down the street, and people used to stop to look at them. Well, when we all left Memo and went to Kovno, Kaunas, she went into the ghetto with her husband. They were in love, and she would not leave him. About 6 months before we got put on the trains to go to Germany, they changed the ghetto to a concentration camp. The difference being that in a ghetto, families live together. In the concentration camp, everybody works. You don't work, you don't live. And I was working in the shops of the ghetto. We were making stoves and all kinds of stuff. And I was also learning how to be a locksmith, because the philosophy was the families are not going to survive as families. And everybody in the family should have a profession, because whoever survives should be able to go someplace in the world and make a go of it. I was 14 years old, and I learned how to be a locksmith and a blacksmith. And my files, my fingers were all fried up. I got 2 spots of steel in my fingers to this day that no doctor wants to remove. They're afraid it's going to cause an infection. So I still have that memory. Well, when they converted the ghetto to a concentration camp, it must just make me cry. They brought all the old people and the children to the trucks to take them, to dispose of them. And here comes Mrs. Mathis with the children, and I was no more than 20 feet away from that truck. Remember, I spoke fluent German, and they told her to deposit the children on the truck because she was a healthy, blonde woman. She spoke their language. She told them where to go. They sicked the dogs on her. Being a German woman, she knew how to handle the dogs. They wouldn't attack her. Well, they saw they couldn't do nothing with her, so they grabbed her and the kids and threw them in the truck like potatoes. And it's 7 then. That's one of the most touching things I've ever seen.
Did you see any of your relatives during the war or after the war?
I was with my father. We were together, we helped each other. And we both survived at the same time. We got liberated in a forest by the American Army. My father had 4 brothers in Dallas, Texas. They came here between 1905 and 1910. They were all farmers. My father was a professional jeweler. He was doing well, so he didn't come. And he kept on writing them letters from Munich. Well, they moved to Maybach, Texas first, but they were in the chicken and poultry business. They were a covered wagon going all down this area, selling their chickens and their eggs. And he wrote, first of all, our name in Germany was B-A-C-K. When my uncles came here, they didn't want to be called Beck, so they changed it B-O-C-K. My high school diploma is B-A-C-K, my college diploma is B-O-C-K. I had to change my name. I became a citizen. They had 2 sons in the American Army. One was a sergeant and one was a colonel. And my father kept on writing letters using the Jewish names. Philip Bock over here was Feifke Bock over there. M.L. Bock was over here. He was Moishe Bock in Europe. So my father used to address the letters and get it to them, Feifke Bock, B-A-C-K, Maybach, Texas. Well, they never got delivered. There was still one uncle living in Maybach, Uncle Herman. He had a general store. One day, the postman delivered him the letter. Who did these letters from B-A-C-K? And of course he realized it and gave it to Philip Bock. And Philip sent it to his sons. And they found us in Munich in the displaced persons camp. That's when Paradise came.
When were you liberated by the American armies?
May the 2nd, 1945.
But do you have any questions about anything he's talked about? You know, just raise your hand. Do you have any stories? Any more stories?
What stories do you want?
Just say the Butterball story.
Yes.
Can you tell them about your life in Dachau? You know, like what kind of food were you given? What were your sleeping arrangements?
Okay, when we got to, we did not go to Dachau properly. They sent us to Landsberg, which was a labor camp. And the commandant using profanity, announced, so we all stood at attention. You don't have any more names, you got numbers, you're not as good as dogs, and if Germany should lose the war at noon, 5 minutes before noon, you will all be shot. And if you want to know where you are, as it makes any difference, you're at concentration camp, Dachau, labor camp, number 1, Landsberg on Lech. It's a city, Lech is a river. And they had 4 or 5 of those things. They were building 4 or 5 these airplane factories. It was a big bunker, but big enough that the airplane could take off on the inside. But they never finished them. They were there a year. And when we got there, the food was, of course, I was young. I didn't understand it all, and I took what I was given, and I was happy with it. And the food was livable, but they kept on cutting back because they wanted people to die. From the 2,000 men that got there, only 200 survived. So that was that's how they killed us, without killing us. I didn't take a bath for 6 months. We had no change of clothes. We had lice. We were treated like animals. Except I had a job that I went to. The cement that got mixed was, but the pipes, they were as long as from here to the wall, and they were coupled together for a mile. And they were taking, first they made a big hill of gravel before we ever got there. Then they poured a thin coat of cement on that to cover it all. Then they put hooks in it and put like a porcupine of steel rod as thick as my finger up maybe 10 feet. Then they crisscrossed it, and then more cement got poured into it. And this went by stage after stage, and they kept on building it. Now, the people on top, when the cement was coming in from those pipes, you had to poke it in between the steel rods. Otherwise, it wouldn't fill up. So there were prisoners up there with pokes, with sticks, poking the cement in. Those people didn't live more than 1 or 2 days. I mean, they were just massacres. The wind was cold, we had no clothes, we had no food. The food finally got down to where we got a bucket of soup per day. Does that answer your question?
Did you take that train to Dachau? Did you ride in a cattle car?
We arrived in cattle cars.
And what was that like?
Hell. We had a cot to go to the bathroom in. We were mixed men and women. Stepped on the floor. And we didn't know where we were. We didn't know where we were going. You didn't bother to complain because they'd kill you on the spot for that. We just sat there. I think you can see all this junk on these events on the History Channel, and I watch it all the time. It's sad. Of course, when we got to the location we were going to, we were marching to the camp, and by the gates they were standing there, the SS, with rubber hoses, and they told these people to march. Well, you got a bunch of people my shape, old people, or people who never marched in their life. I learned how to march at school. I marched, but everybody else got hit with the stick, with the rubber hose. That started them off pretty bad right then and there. The what?
The Butterball story in the news.
No, but yes. That's the humorous. Yes.
What happened to your mother?
What?
What happened to
Did
your
you have a
mother?
mother at the
Okay.
beginning of the war?
My mother was separated from us at Stutthof on the way to Dachau. And she went in that camp and she died there. And a sister. And another sister with a little boy, 4 years old. We lost them all. I would say, there's an old saying, God helps those that help themselves. But when your number's up, you can be perfect, it's over.
We brought some stuff to show. This is a belt.
Yeah. Well, this is my belt. I didn't have a belt, I had a string around my pants in the camp, and they took all our clothes away, so this man had an extra belt, so he gave it to me. And I wore it with the camp, but show how small it is.
This is the length that he wore.
Was that after you were starved, like the toe?
That was, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm sorry.
We also brought a picture. This is him on his first day of German school.
First day of school, you got a big bag full of goodies.
Let's walk around so everybody can see it closely. Mr. Bock, maybe while he's showing you the photograph, you can talk a little bit about your family life, memories you have from home
Where?
in Metal.
I was just a young kid. I did what they told me to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Was your family religious, traditional, not very involved in ritual?
My house was kosher. My father came out of Russia. He was religious, but not fanatically. Didn't permit any pork. And my best friend, his name was Lothar Kaminsky. He was a German kid. And one Passover, he brought me a big chocolate rabbit as a present. Well, I love chocolate, as you can see. And my father had a fit because it was not made for Passover. And I was not going to give up that rabbit. And we got into a fight, and my mother intervened. My mother was religious, but not as strict as my father. So she made a deal. We put it in the grandfather clock for a week till Passover was over. I can look at it, but I can't touch it. So I watched it for a whole week. Yes, sir.
Are you still in contact with anybody that you knew back then?
No, my sister, one sister survived. She is here.
That's it?
That's it. Yes.
How many siblings did you have?
Well, I had 3 sisters. Only one survived.
Do you want to tell a story behind this ring?
Okay, the ring. This is an initial ring.
Gold ring. You can see it.
You may have said, but what happened to your father?
He came to Dallas, Texas, and passed away in 1968 at age 84.
So were you all together the whole time?
Yes. That was also 1 in a million.
Yeah, that was unusual, wasn't
Were y'all able to work together, and did you sleep in the same quarters?
At one time, no, because I worked on the construction job, and he got himself a cushy job making jewelry for the guards. He was a professional jeweler, and they used to take the teeth out of the dead people and send them in to the German treasury. And they were stealing some of the teeth. They gave it to him to make jewel rings for them. he had no tools. And the tools he used was improvised, but he was doing it. And that got us some extra food sometimes. We're not talking any big food, but some food. And when they started evacuating us, because the Americans were coming, they took us to Daco proper. He had 4 or 5 teeth left. There was in his glove and his thumb. And we were going with, that's all he had. And when we got to Daco, they organized 50,000 people. They were taking us to Austria because we were so close to end the war. The Nazis didn't want to shoot us on German territory. They wanted to shoot us in Austria. And the Americans kept on coming. And that column got split up. And the death rate was tremendous. No food. We lived, it was in April, we slept in the forest in the elements, we had no blankets. It was snowing, it was raining. It's surprising that we didn't catch whatever you can catch from this kind of thing. But I slept next to my father, I guess our bodies kept warm. Finally, one morning, then we lay down. We had 2 blankets. I had a blanket, he had a blanket. We went to sleep on one blanket, covered ourselves with another blanket. In the morning I woke up, snow fell during the night, and it was steaming through the blanket. And I got up and I walked around, and I went over to the command post where the 4-star SS man was. The rank was Obersturmführer, Obersturmbannführer. And he gave the order, load your machine guns. He was going to shoot us right then and there. And here came another 4-star SS man with the Red Cross, with the mayor from the little village. And he says, you can't shoot these people here because the Americans are 5 miles away from here, and they're going to annihilate that village if you do that. So our guy didn't say a word. And I remember I speak fluent German, and I was very close. He got on his motorcycle and rode away. He rode away. The guards ran away. And then the other SS was the Red Cross went away. The mayor from this village took us into town and put us in a barn to sleep with the animals. But now we had straw, we were other elements, and in the afternoon my father tells me that he's dying. His stomach is meeting his back, and only inherits it to leave me of the teeth. Well, I took the teeth, and I took one tooth. I didn't take them all. And I went out of the barn into a home, into a German house. I felt the bullet was coming, but I didn't hear it, because there was nobody left to guard us except an old Hungarian soldier. And I ran into this farmhouse and I told him, I need some food, my father's dying. They looked at me like I was nuts, but I could talk to them. I said, I'll give you a gold tooth, that's worth a lot of money. They said, where'd you get the gold tooth? I said, from a dead Jew. Turning Nazi, I'm talking their language. I said, oh no, the Americans catch us with the gold tooth from a dead Jew, they're going to kill us all. I said, no, they can't tell it, the difference. Whether it came from an old Jew or from a German, from your grandfather. Just tell us from your grandfather. Well, what do you want? I'll take some potatoes. They were cooking potatoes. I stuck them in there, burned myself. I'll take some cheese. I'll take a piece of bread. I just grab whatever I could. They gave it to me. And I went back, so this is one way to survive, speak their language. And then I went and shared it with my father. I had a fight with him. I wanted him to eat it all, but he insisted on splitting it. I could still run. My father could barely move. I also had a brother-in-law there. That's another story. That's how it started.
How did you get the rings?
Oh, the ring. My father took, we lived in Munich after the war. We found a jeweler, and they took the teeth and they alloyed them to 14 karat gold, and they casted 5 rings. He made one for himself, and one for me, 2 for me, and one for my sister, and one for my brother-in-law. And I lost one ring, but I was in the street, and the kids were throwing snowballs at me. I reached out to throw a snowball at them. The ring fell off my finger and it's gone. But I got this ring, and I got his ring with the AB from Abraham Bock, which I gave to my other grandson, and Hans is getting mine for the HB. Yes?
How did you save the picture from when you were a child that you just showed us?
This one, it was shipped to America to his brothers. And we got several pictures that they had here.
So what kind of work did you do when you came to the States?
Do what?
What kind of work did you do when you finally got to the United States?
Well, I went to Grozier Tech High School, but I always had a job. I went to work for Britain Cycle Company for 35 cents an hour to put bicycles together. That was a good job. And we just moved on.
So did you end up farming with your uncles?
The what?
Did you end up farming with your
No,
uncles?
no.
Tell them about your job today.
The what?
Tell them about your job today.
My job, I built a jewelry company. I own Bock and Dorf's. I have 3 sons in it. 3 or 4. 3. It's, yeah.
When you were at the barn and all of the guards had left, is that where the Americans found you and liberated you?
Well, we saw the American tanks in the trucks, and that scared the daylights out of me because they had a 5-pointed star. The Russians have a 5-pointed star, except theirs is red. There are a few little mistakes that, well, misinformed, but I quickly realized it was the Americans, which was, we didn't want the Russians anymore.
Well, when you got liberated, what happened next? From that barn, where did you go?
Okay, the
and then
first
how
month.
did you eventually
Well, we
get
never
to
got
the United
officially
States?
liberated. We went from the barns, and the next night we spent in people's homes on the hallway, on the floor, which was even better. And then the Americans sent us back by foot, I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7 miles to Bartels. Bartels had the West Point for the SS. Beautiful barracks. We went there, and we stayed there for, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. Then we get food already. Things start looking up. But then the Americans decided they wanted us for themselves as a headquarters. So they put us on the big trucks that become amphibious trucks. And they drove us to Munich. To the Air Force barracks. And man, we were there, was everybody. The Russians were there, the Polacks were there. And we were in that camp. We started getting a little food. And after we got ourselves together, we didn't want to stay there. So I went out in the neighborhood, and I I got a room from a German family. So we moved in with them. It was far from the city, and I used to walk. I don't know. You know, a young kid doesn't realize how long, but I walked till I could catch a streetcar, and I went to the place where they gave out rooms, because the city was bombed, so they confiscated rooms for people. If you had an apartment with 4 bedrooms, it might take 2 bedrooms away from you. So I went there every day for a whole month to ask for a room, and they finally gave me an address and told me the guy's a Nazi, and we've already taken 2 rooms away from him. We're taking another room away from him. And if he gives you any trouble, you come back and we'll send the police with you. But that's really maybe a month after we got liberated. Well, I came there again, I spoke German. He was happy to have me. And the problem was, he didn't, I told him I got a father. He said, oh, no, it was just for one piece, person occupancy. So I was thinking, I already had some loot at that point, because I had met, when I met my cousin, the colonel, he gave me a bunch of cigarettes, which is like cash, and chocolates. And I didn't have much at that point, but I had something, and I kind of let my father move in there too. Then I told him I had a brother-in-law. Boy, he blew his mind. I toned him down on that. And my brother-in-law was never there because he had stayed with friends. So my father and me moved in there. And one day, the only day I ever left my father, I went on a truck that was going back to where the camp was. They had a memorial there, so I went with them. I got back, my father sitting there all happy. The sergeant, my cousin, found him, and he gave him some, whatever he had, cigarettes, chocolate. Man, I came home, I was in Bock heaven. And he said that my other cousin, the colonel, can't come because they're recording his whole army back to the United States. And if we want to see him, we need to go there. Yeah. There was no transportation. We hitchhiked across Germany. When we got there, I became a millionaire because he doesn't smoke. He had all kinds of cigarettes, and that was cash. What's that?
Let me just interrupt for 1 second more, because you're passing around the ring. We have in the archives of the Holocaust Museum very different rings. The ring is being passed around. It's on its way here. The ring that Mr. Bock showed you is made from gold and certainly has a value. You know that the Nazis tried to use everything they could from the prisoners themselves. And rings they took from people's hands, forced people to give up their rings, and they separated them. Anything with any value was sent back to Germany. But there was quite a large collection of rings in all of the camps that had very little value. They were made from brass, they were made from very cheap metals, they were very thin. These are the kinds of rings that you would, get at a dollar store or find in a Lucky Elephant box of popcorn. But these are actual rings that were brought to the museum from the camps, and so we'll pass those around also. In addition to rings, we have a fairly large case of eyeglasses frames. These are very thin eyeglass frames. The lenses were popped out, and the lenses were actually sent back to Germany for reuse. But the frames themselves are not very valuable, and so they were sent to the caps, and or they were left in storehouses. In fact, you can see, I brought along a photograph. You can see this photograph. This photograph was actually taken by the Soviets in Auschwitz, the largest of the death camps. When the Soviets liberated Auschwitz on the 27th of January 1945, they found a total of 28 warehouses full of stuff from the prisoners that were sent there, from the people that were murdered there. You've got here a warehouse full of clothing, one of shoes, one of eyeglasses, and one of rings. And so that gives you a kind of a context for all of this material. The last case that we have is actually just some of the more rare, more exotic items that we have in our collection, including bracelets, brooches, particularly brooches where, and I guess it was a fashion in Eastern Europe, where they would take family photographs, family portraits, and put the faces of the people on these brooches. We have no idea who these individuals are. We have no idea even what country they came from, but these were dropped in a camp, thrown around, put in warehouses until they were brought here. So you can look at all of this material, and we can send this one over in this direction, as we go through it. So we can continue to ask. We still have plenty of time for additional questions. Go ahead.
What was the housing and like sleeping arrangement like in concentration camp?
Well, when we first got there, they were round huts made from heavy cardboard.
Please use the microphone, Mr. Bock.
Microphone?
They were round huts made from cardboard, and we all slept around them in a circle. And then they decided to modernize. We dug 2 trenches, I guess, from here to the wall. And then they put wood on top of it, and wood on the sides as a walkway. And then they made a roof on it with wood and I don't know what you call it in English, but it's a waterproof cardboard. And then we put sand on top of that. And each column, each line from the trench, the 50 men slept next to each other. So the 50 men. And in the middle, we had a little butt-buddy stove that we warmed up. It was nothing special. And that's how we lived in that camp. And we all had lice, and my lice went on him, and his lice went on me. The reason, in January, they had a couple of cases of typhoid. Now, the Germans, that can be catched to anybody. So we didn't go to work. They deloused us. They deloused the buildings. They gassed them. They killed all the lice. They changed the straw. They changed the blankets. They gave us clean clothes. But that's the first time I ever heard that they gassed people. We never knew what was going on in Auschwitz. Or they said sometimes instead of water, they put gas to it. I just didn't understand it. So I never had any fear.
How many years from the day you consider your life changing till you were released, how many years did you spend during that time?
Did what?
How many years did you spend during this period of your life, from the day you felt like your life changed and you were put in the camp to when you were released and free again?
I took one day at a time. I never felt a change. I just.
But how old were you when you started, and how old were you when
Well,
you?
I was 15, and I'm 78 now, almost 79.
Next reason.
How old were you when the war ended?
Well, 1945, I was born 1930. 15.
How old were you when you first went to Dachau?
A year earlier.
So you were just there for a year?
But I was 3 years in the ghetto.
How did you get reconnected with your sister?
The what?
How did you get reunited with your sister?
Oh, that was, my family said, if anybody survives, they should go back to Kaunas. Well, my father, he got liberated in the American zone, so we were in Munich, and he had no intention of going to the Russian zone. The Russians came, they wanted us, they came to this Air Force barracks, and they tried to tell everybody to hurry up and go back. The people that come back will get the best jobs, and the people that come last will be criminals. My father didn't buy it. He said, I'm going to America to my brothers. And what was the question?
How did you get reunited with your sister?
What?
Or did you reconnect?
Well, my sister, we were living in Munich. My bird-brain sister went back to Kaunas. And she was stuck there. A young girl, no money. She had a few friends. She was living in the English zone, but she was back like a good girl was supposed to. Here is the story about jewelry. They took all of us away, but my father had left 5-carat diamonds and a diamond pin with the 5-carat emerald in it, and he put it in a milk bottle and buried it under the house where we were living. So they told everybody where it was except me. I was too young. And the Germans burned everything. They burned every house. And first of all, we thought it was just to make sure nobody's hiding in them. But that wasn't it. According to the History Channel, they burned everything. Everything. On all sides. They just won't leave anything for the Russians. So she went there with her friends to look for it. And they had a stick for 2 days. And one day, the second day, they hid it. They saw this thing that looked like a melted glass. So they hit it with a stick, and there it was, the pin and the diamond. So now she sold it for $200, all of it. $20 gold pieces. And it took $100 for her to smuggle her way out of Kovno to Poland to Berlin. She got to the, of course, people knew, they told her your mother and father are in Munich. So one day she shows up, here I am.
Was your sister sent to a concentration camp?
What?
Was your sister sent to a
Yes, she was a Stutthof, my other sister got.
Which one?
Anna Stutthof, that's the name of Stutthof.
We're nearing the end, but I wanted to know, sir, if you were interested in telling the students some kind of final message or lessons from the period, some kind of last thoughts that you might have that you might want to impart to them.
No. The devil is out there. If he gets you, it's all over. That's it.
Very much so. Okay, we need to do a shift with the other groups. So 1 second, I'll just find that. You want glass or something?
What's the rate?
Thanks for
The
coming.
ring is returned.